and supportive of the lawsuit filed by the New Georgia Project, Black Voters Matter Fund, and Rise, Inc. Know that we are with you. Finally, as a caucus, we ask the following. Contact your United States senators and demand they support House Resolution 1, the For the People Act, and House Resolution 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We need federal intervention to end Jim Crow 2.0. To the private sector in Georgia, if you support democracy and the dream Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shared and died for, then support local organizations as they educate voters about this unjust law. To local governments, share with your state legislators what the unfunded mandates in the Election Integrity Act of 2021 will cost your county. Explain how these new costs will impact your budget and ability to provide other needed services. To our district attorneys, solicitors, and sheriffs, share with your state legislators your concern about criminalizing human decency. If a church, mosque, or synagogue decides to provide voters water or a blanket, they are immediately demanded or deemed criminals. Is that who we are as a state? Most important, to all my Georgians, register to vote, become engaged, and make sure you go to the polls every time. Do not let this law turn you around. Next, speaking on how their respective organizations will respond to Senate Bill 202 becoming law are my friends Nsé Ufot, CEO of the New Georgia Project, Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund, and Andre Fields, political director of Fair Fight. Now I welcome Nsé Ufot to the podium.
Good morning. Last week, Georgia Governor with an asterisk, Brian Kemp, signed a sweeping anti-voting bill, Senate Bill 202, into law. And the New Georgia Project, Black Voters Matter, and Rise immediately filed suit afterwards. The bill states, or the lawsuit states, that SB 202 violates the 14th Amendment and Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act by imposing new ID requirements for absentee voting, limiting absentee drop boxes, banning mobile polling places, making it illegal to give food or water to voters waiting in line, and more. Oh, and by the way, it fired Brad Raffensperger and took away half of his responsibilities as Secretary of State. This bill also overwhelmingly hurts Black and brown voters. Meanwhile, Georgia-based companies like Delta, Coca-Cola, and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, who refuse to publicly oppose these anti-voter bills, despite their claims to support civil rights, equal rights, and Black Lives Matter, last week issued statements commending this terrible trash legislation. Senate Bill 202 is not commendable in the least. It represents everything Republican lawmakers are fighting for: a rollback of voting rights for Black and brown communities, new voters, and young people in Georgia. Delta, Coca-Cola, and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce praise of this bill is a betrayal. It shows that they are ready to dismantle the freedom to vote alongside the Republican lawmakers they so willingly and vociferously support. So here's the deal. Georgia companies can't have it both ways. It is completely unacceptable to praise the bills that take away our most fundamental American right to vote and simultaneously profit off of our dollars. Their betrayal has now become completely blinding. If you really care, you will change your public statements, You will publicly support the Voting Rights Advancement Act, H.R. 4, and the For the People Act, S1. You will also tell your Republican friends to pass these acts immediately and make it clear that you care about your customers, your employees, and the members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Nsé. Next, we will call to this podium Latasha Brown, founder of Black Voters Matter Fund.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom's land. Before I speak, I wanted to sing that song in the spirit of what got us here. And the spirit of what got us here is our people have fought and died for the right to vote. And it is an affront that here we are in 2021 and we're actually still dealing with a fundamental question of whether black people or people in this state should have free and fair access to the ballot. Georgia should be ashamed of itself. The governor should be ashamed of itself. And so there's a couple of things I just want to say quickly. One, even related to what Nsé said earlier, you know, around this notion around Delta and others. I read the Delta statement and I was appalled. At the end of the day, what has always been a context in this country is really using what I call the racist spin. That you create a spin that says that is actually here is something that we're doing to help benefit black people. That is kind of what happened when they said the literacy test. Oh, they were innocent. That was nothing but just a literacy test. Oh, or maybe let's talk about how many balls, gumballs are in a jar. There's nothing really harmful about that. But in fact, underneath that, the straight racism, the anti-democratic practices to try to make it seem as if it was something innocent, to actually marginalize the voters of this state. And so when we're talking about the work that we're doing, there are three things. One, we're going to take this to the streets. We're going to organize even greater than we organized before. In some ways, Governor Kemp, you accelerated the campaign against you. Secondly, when we're talking about taking it to the streets to really be able to elevate and educate our people about what is happening, and it's not going to stand, the second thing is we're taking it to the courtrooms. Yes, we have filed a lawsuit, and we plan to be victorious in that lawsuit because we know that we're standing on the right side of history. It is an infringement on our First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights in this country. It's one thing to say that we've got policy differences, right? That we have differences in how we see policy. The question of citizens having the right to vote, that's a nonpartisan issue. However, we've allowed the GOP to make this be a partisan issue. My right to vote is not a partisan issue. That is a civil right that my people have fought and died for in this country. The third thing is we're not only going to take this to the courts, but we're taking it to the coffers. We're literally looking at these companies, multinational companies, and Delta should particularly be ashamed of itself, being that it has over 40% of its workforce are people of color. How dare you to actually stand along with a statement that has a spin as if this bill is something that is good for black folks or even good for Georgia voters, when in fact you know that it is harmful, that it is dangerous. It is egregious that we're saying that now the ruling party can actually take the opportunity to take over the Board of Elections, right? And it's all predicated on a big lie. And so what we're here to say today is, ain't gonna let nobody turn us around, that we have been in this space before, and we're coming. We are coming. We're coming in stronger force because there is a coalition made up not just of black people, but white people and indigenous people and Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and Latino brothers and sisters, right? And white brothers and sisters. Ultimately, there is a new coalition of people who believe in humanity and who believe fundamentally in the right to vote, that we're going to stand against this bill, we're going to continue, and we're actually going to take our message all across this nation, because ain't nobody going to turn us around.
And now I call to the podium Andre Fields with Fair Fight Action.
Now, y'all know that's criminal to make me go after LaTosha Brown. That ain't fair, y'all. So anyone in favor of protecting voting rights in America must demand right now that the U.S. Senate prioritizes S1, and we need the House to prioritize the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which is also known as H.R. 4. Thankfully, we know our Georgia senators, 2 Georgia senators, and 6 Georgia representatives will deliver. So while Georgia's COVID-19 vaccine rates stand last in the nation, state Republicans in both chambers are more focused on suppressing votes and restricting voter access than addressing the public health crisis for all Georgians. So what's next? We need people to help spread the word that every major corporation that did nothing as Jim Crow 2.0 swept through Georgia's state house, they need to be held accountable. Silence is complicity, and racist public policies are bad for business. The reputational damage to Georgia caused by SB 202 will come as swiftly as the bill was rushed through the legislature just last week. Racism and voter suppression are not the image Georgia needs right now. In addition to boycotts of major Georgia companies, here's what's at risk for Georgia following the racist SB 202 voter suppression law. Tourism is at risk. A vibrant film industry is at risk. Tech jobs are at risk. The World Cup and other events are at risk. Republicans, quite simply, are taking Georgia backwards. So, for folks out there who want to help us in this fight, I would encourage you to visit Stop Jim Crow 2.0, and we have specific actions that people who want to help here in Georgia and around the country can take. Also, it's clear that the next attack will be on the County Board of Elections. We want folks to join in the defense by joining the Georgia Peanut Gallery. The Georgia Peanut Gallery is a nonpartisan partnership made up of civil rights organizations, and it recruits and trains volunteers from across the state to monitor and report activities at local county boards of election meetings to ensure that county officials are accountable to the people. Make no mistake, we will continue this fight.
As you've heard, we stand with our allies and our friends. We will continue to push back and fight against this bill. We will call for the governor to repeal this bill. And we will stand with our community leaders, our other local elected officials, and we will continue to fight against Senate Bill 202. Thank you for joining us this morning. Are there any questions?
Both of our organizations are part of, we're seeking federal injunctive relief. We want the federal courts to actually give us injunctive relief right now.
And the lawsuit is particularly important. So while we are pushing for S1 in the Senate and for HR 4, and it is broad, right? The For the People Act is designed to invalidate a lot of the trash that's in SB 202, but there are some places where it falls short. In particular, the sort of overreach and inserting the will of the legislature replacing the will of the county and the will of voters with the will of the legislature. So the removing the Secretary of State as the chair of the State Elections Board, none of that will be addressed by federal legislation. So it is our hope that it will be interned or invalidated in federal court. That's right.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. wait. Hold up. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, take the picture. We just need Tasha want to take one.